Hey and welcome, I'm Hammeh, and today we're going to be having a look at the new lore that we learned from the fresh Juno origin comic, The Red Promise. In this comic we learn about Project Red Promise, about Jiayi, Juno's mother, and the secret trip they took to Mars, Juno's childhood, her life as being the only Martian, or the only Mars-born Martian, her life on the Martian colony, and the reasoning behind her return to Earth alone, while the rest of her family and the rest of the mission stayed on Mars. Now, timecodes are in the description below if you want to see a bunch of things that I thought were pretty cool from this comic. It is available on the Overwatch website in the comic section if you want to give it a read first, so I won't summarise the story for this one, it's a pretty quick one. First thing I really enjoyed about this comic was all of the details into Lucheng Interstellar's secret mission, as we know it's now to be, to Mars, and Project Red Promise. We are shown at the beginning of the comic Jiayi, Juno's mother, or Zhang Jiayi as we see from her name on this monitor in Mandarin, in a flashback to when Project Red Promise actually left Earth. Now, at a couple of different points in the comic, Juno says that this mission was secret, which tells us actually volumes about events later in the comic, as well as why Juno actually returns, but more on that later. We see in the comic that the scientists' mission was to try and terraform Mars. So these scientists were tasked somehow with the technology of the Overwatch world to transform Mars from maybe a planet hostile to terrestrial or human life to one that could maybe host humans and perhaps other life forms as well. Now, literally in real life, just a week or two ago, various seismic data has been found indicating there may be a huge underground, perhaps frozen reservoir of liquid water on Mars. It's very, very, very deep and probably very, very hard to drill for, but it's potentially there. Coupled with sightings of frost on Mars at various points over the past few years, it's not out of the realms of possibility to think that, who knows, maybe 40, 50 years in the future, we could have more missions going to Mars. Now, the terraforming work that Juno's family, Juno's mum, dad, and these Lucheng Interstellar scientists did caused some problems in the Martian environment. Apparently a bunch of dust storms and lightning storms started that we see through the comic, becoming increasingly dangerous to the scientists living on this newly founded Martian colony. Now, as if this wasn't enough for the scientists to deal with, at some point Lucheng Interstellar stopped responding. Juno says in the comic that her parents and the first people in the ship were kind of only the first wave. They were kind of the landing party. There was a larger wave of personnel and supplies, other missions expected to arrive, and these never showed up. If you were one of the colonists on Mars and you lost communication with Earth, you'd be pretty worried. If promised other ships and other missions and other supplies never showed up, then you'd be even more worried still. Now, a lot of this will depend on how old we think Juno is and the technology that got these scientists to Mars, so nothing too concrete on timelining. In the wider Overwatch lore story and events, we do know, of course, that a bunch of years ago, Lucheng Interstellar lost control of the Horizon lunar colony to the apes and various test subjects, test animals who were living there. In the recent Overwatch Heroes Ascendant short story called Thoughtless Gods, where Hammeh goes back to visit Lijiang Tower, Lucheng Interstellar, and discovers a bunch about his past. Check out my complete analysis and lore learnings from that video. There's a video linked just here if you like once you've watched this. We learned that Lucheng Interstellar have tried 3 times to retake the Horizon lunar colony, and each time they have been defeated by the apes there who have been innovating, as well as them apparently building their own structure on the moon outside the realms and confines of the original Horizon base. Now, pure speculation at this point, but given the very visible nature of the problems of the Horizon lunar colony, the massive potential losses that Lucheng will probably have if they can't get control of this base back, and potentially the embarrassment and problems that this causes them on Earth right now, I could very much speculatively see an embattled Lucheng Interstellar thinking that they have to make a choice in terms of where they spend their money and their investment. Do they keep their secret Martian terraforming mission going? Or do they perhaps, if they're very brutal and corporate, given that the mission is a secret, just perhaps leave the scientists be? There are, of course, less sinister potential reasons. Perhaps some of the technology required to contact Mars is actually on the Horizon lunar colony, and it's being used perhaps as a satellite relay or some such thing. One would imagine that by the present day of the Overwatch world, that space and satellite communications technology would be a little bit more advanced. However, it's perfectly possible that there is a benign explanation for this. I could, however, see Lucheng perhaps cutting the Martian colony loose, or perhaps not having any choice but to go after the Horizon lunar colony in terms of their investment efforts and recouping their losses, re-establishing control over their very expensive lunar facility first. Either way, we learn from Juno in her comic that her family and the people on the Martian colony made a decision. They built her own ship. They said it was time for her to find her own way, but honestly, they knew that they were trying to get the one Martian, the one child who had been born on Mars, out of the terrible situation that the entire team might find themselves in. Juno understands this. She is understandably very upset. She doesn't want to leave her family behind. The planet, the colony is everything that she has ever known. But she draws inspiration from her family, from her friends, and from the team, the challenges that they've overcome so far, and that the challenge that they face is one that other people on Earth might want to share and try and overcome with them. Uploading the climate data from Mars to her ship and grabbing a photo from her mum, she's presumably been asked by Jiayi to get in contact with May, her mother's old friend and study partner. Juno sets off from Mars, waving a tearful goodbye to her family, and with the mission to get to Earth and presumably to get in contact with May, and also, I would imagine, Lucheng Interstellar, to find out what the heck's been going on in the years that they've had no contact. So really cool details on what happened with this mission, a vision into Overwatch's world of space and how space travel and exploration is working. Other cool things that we saw, it was cool to see a bit about Juno's life on Mars and on the colony. We see her spinning around on Roombas as a child and then managing to balance on them when she's a little bit older, stealing spacesuits, the vision of Juno's sort of quite small and obviously like more childish head in this giant suit as she walks out to the scientists is very, very funny. And finally, seeing her with what I'm speculating probably to be her dad, making her suit drones, as well as her helping the scientists work and getting used to what she can do. In her own words, she doesn't have a PhD. It's kind of cool to see the life of, if there is such a thing, a potentially normal person living on Mars, outside of all of the scientists doing this very complicated work. Last and by no means least, we also get probably a little bit more detail about Juno's family. Well, of course, we have it confirmed that Juno's mum is Jiayi. We get Jiayi's surname confirmed as well. Zhang, as I said before, on this monitor. Now, in the year 2024, it's more than common for people to have, if they get married, sometimes double-barreled surnames. Sometimes people keep their own surname for professional reasons or for personal reasons, even if they are married. So Jiayi keeping Zhang is not a massive surprise. On Juno's spacesuit, however, we see Min Teo. So Teo is kind of a Chinese surname, and Min, Vietnamese, of course. Now, there is one chap here in the comic strip, maybe another Vietnamese person saying congratulations. However, given his prominence in 3 frames sitting next to Jiayi when they take off from Earth, him telling Juno not to put a rock in her mouth, another rock eater, by the way. I think Juno should get in touch with Venture and see what those two have to say to each other. And of course, him working with Juno to kind of make bits of her suit. I believe that this guy perhaps is Juno's actual dad. So there we have it, a quick look into Juno's origin comic called The Red Promise, a few lore learnings, a few cool bits of story. I feel that this is most likely going to replace any kind of origin short or trailer. And honestly, I think if you want to tell a bit more story than an origin trailer used to, then this kind of makes sense. I know some people may be a little bit disappointed. I think if you tried to fit all of this detail and all of this storytelling into one of the short animated origin trailers that we've had before, it might be a little bit tough. It would be very, very hard to squeeze all of that in a short period of time. So we have Juno trying to save her family, trying to save her friends, trying to save her home and everyone that she's ever known from increasingly dangerous weather conditions on Mars, with no resupply, with no prospective help, and with perhaps a Lucheng Interstellar company who maybe even just abandon them, maybe cut them loose to die. It's going to be fascinating to see how Juno's story continues now that she's on Earth in the world of Overwatch and Overwatch 2. Thanks for tuning in. If you like this video, throw a like, subscribe, let me know. Did you enjoy this comic? What do you think of Juno's origin story as a character? Are you looking forward to Overwatch 2 Season 12? Let me know in the comments below. And if you want to explore the world, story, lore, voice lines, interactions, and more of Overwatch, short stories, comics, animated shorts, analysis, and information galore, I've got it all from the past 8 years plus in these playlists on my channel here. Cheers for tuning in. I've been Hammeh. Take it easy.